Hello there, CCS. This is Mr. Boolsen here. Just coming in and wanting to share with you another video. Today we are finishing up our fractions lesson, and yeah, we're just going to dive right into this because, yep, we got no time to waste. So to start off, we're just going to compare. We're going to talk about comparing units with different amounts, or different units rather. So this is just a simple idea that they want us to teach you today. If I asked you to add 1 meter plus 2 centimeters, what would you say? Well, some of you might be inclined to give me a few different answers. You could say that, you could say 3, and if you did say 3 centimeters or 3 meters, I think you'd be making a mistake, and here's why. I'm not thinking, I know you're making a mistake, but I don't know if anyone will do this, but you see 3 meters and 3 centimeters are actually different units, and so we have to pay attention here. This can't be true, right? Because these are different units and they don't actually add up like that. They don't add like 1 plus 2 equals 3. They can't, because they're different units. In reality, we can't add these together as they are. Now, some of you might have instead said 102 centimeters. Now this, in a way, is correct. This would be somewhat right. But you've actually done something and you skipped a step. What you really have done here is you've actually said this is actually 100 centimeters, and that's plus 2 centimeters. That equals 102 centimeters. Now this is perfectly correct, because you can add 100 centimeters to 2 centimeters, and that's fine. Now, some of you might have also done it like this. 2 meters plus 2 centimeters equals 1 meter and 2 centimeters. Now this, in a way, this is another correct way of writing it, right? These are different units, and thus we put them side by side, just like we would say 2 hours and 10 minutes. We would just say 1 meter and 2 centimeters. And people will talk like this often. It could be like, I'm a meter 90, and that's saying I'm a meter and 90 centimeters. Exactly. So this is part of your workbook work today, where you're going to be just asked what is being compared. And so if there is something like 15 mins to walk 1 kilometer, for example, what would be being compared here? Well, it's 15 minutes and 1 kilometer, but it's actually even more. It's minutes and kilometers that are being compared. So it's minutes to kilometers that are being compared. Now, if we were to say 3 lemons equal $2, here we would be comparing dollars to lemons, and those would be the units. There's 3 lemons and $2. So yeah, I hope you get that when you're comparing, what you're looking for when they're asking you what is being compared, you're looking for what are the different units, and we can't really add those, right? You can't add 15 minutes to kilometers. Now there are, when you get higher up in math, there are ways to use both those units and get other cool things. In physics, you can find out your velocity, how fast you're going, by having the distance traveled and the time, and then you can get your velocity. So that's cool, but that's not for today. So next part we're going to go to is understanding unit rate. So sometimes when we're dealing with things, they're equal, that are being compared, just like before, they're compared at an equal to 1. So something was equal to 1. So for example, we could say 1 apple is equal to 30 cents, right? And so this would be a comparison that's equal to 1. And so with this, when we're going from here, we could say, if I was to ask how much would 3 apples be, well, you would say that 3 apples are equal to 90 cents. And right, how would you have done this? Well, you're basically, in a sense, you're doing this times 3, because right, this is times 3. There's 3 times as many, and so you times this by 3, and you also times the price by 3. So when we're given a measurement that, or a unit rate that is equal to 1, we can work out what a higher group is worth, or what like more would be worth. So that is always nice when we're actually given it in 1. And so I could also say, maybe just to show you again, Zach, I don't know who Zach is, but he walks 1 kilometer in 12 minutes. So if I wanted 2 kilometers, what would I get? Well, first, what has happened here? Well, we multiply that by 2, right? And then here, we also want to do the same thing, multiply by 2. And so we would get what? 24 minutes to walk 2 kilometers. All things being equal, right? So there you go. There you have it. That it's, in a sense, I think some of you might be thinking, oh, that's kind of like fractions, right? Trying to find equivalent fractions. And in a sense it is, right? You're finding, like, he's walking at the same pace. The apples are worth the same amount. And so there is a sense that it is similar to equivalent fractions. I don't want you to take that too deeply, because we're not exactly dealing with fractions. We're dealing with rates, and though they can have similar patterns and similar similar things, and you could actually make fractions out of these, we don't want to necessarily work in that. Yeah, you don't want that to be your main focus here. Just that these are multiplicative relationships, right? That this, we can see how multiplication is coming into play here to find answers. Now, we're gonna come back to this. So keep that in mind, how we got to those, especially the fact that from 1 we can find others. But before we get there, I just want to talk about something like half as many. Now, this is something that we probably all come across many times in our lives. People say, oh, well, I have half as many sisters as you. Oh, I earned half as many dollars this month. Or, sorry, I had a big sip of coffee there, and there was cookie in it. Not the yummiest. But yeah, half as many. Right, so this is something that we come across quite often. Well, what is exactly being said here? Well, let's take this for example. 2, 3, 4. Whoop, whoop, and haha, you didn't see that coming, did you? The circle pie is back. Well, so this is a total of 4 pieces of pizza. Now, what would be half as many as the total pizza? Well, what we can easily do here is just color in half of the pizza, and we can find it out, right? And we can find out what half as many would mean. So when you have a whole, that is 1 whole. But if you have half as many, so 4, half as many of 4 is 2, right? So if you have a total of 4, half as many is 2. And so you could say 2 is half as many as 4, right? And you could say the same thing. If I get rid of these numbers here for us, and I hope you guys get the concept, and I divide this up into more pieces. So we've dealt with things like this before. Now how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was missed one. So 8 in total. Well, what's half as many as 8? Well, we've colored in half of the shape, right? And so 1, 2, 3, 4. So you could say 4 is half as many as 8. And that's true. And so that's just the expression of half as many. Now, when we are going into the next part, we need to keep that in mind. So the next thing is a little bit more tricky. So what happens if I say I have 1 and a half times as many? So what am I saying here? Well, let's take a look. This is 1. So, right, if you had this whole shape colored in, if you had this all colored in, that is 1. Well, so what is 1 times 1? When we say 1 times 1, what are we going to get? Well, we get 1. So if I say I have 1.5, what are we dealing with? Well, we're not just dealing with a simple 1, we're dealing with 1.5. So what we have to do here is think about this as, think about our objects as shapes. So if I again say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, what we can say here is that if we have 2, well, 2 times 1, 2 times 1, if we were just saying I have 1 times as many, it would be just 2 times 1 is equal to 2. But if I have 2.5 times as many, what I'm really kind of saying is 2.5. Well, 2 times 1 is just 2, but there's also a little bit more here, right? So this would be 2, but there's also, we have to look at this half. So what would be half of 2 times 1/2? Well, that's the same as saying, well, what's half of 2? Well, half of 2 is 1, right? So that's half of 2. So we really, when we say 2.5, we're timesing it by 1, which gives us, 1, and we also get an extra half of that amount. Now I know that's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, the idea there is that you get 1.5 times as many. So if we, for example, had shapes that were divided into fourths, and you were to show this, that was how many you had initially, but then you got 1.5 times as many. Well, you'd get this is 1 times as many, it's the same amount, but a half is, all you're doing is you're adding half of the shape. So this time it's 2, so this is 4, right? 4 pieces in total. Well, another half on that as well is 6, right? So now you have 6. So 4, or you could say 6 is 1 and a half times as many as 4. Or you could say 3 is 1 and a half times as many as 2. So yeah, that is the basic idea there. So finally, we're just going to look at this last thing. So it kind of requires us, and sorry if I'm rushing here, I had a video failure again, and it was kind of annoying because I don't want to take too much time, because you can get right to the end and then it fails. So if 4 books cost $24, what would 3 books cost? Well, the first thing we have to do here, well, we're trying to find 3, but first, remember, this kind of goes back to our rate questions. Well, if we're trying to find what 3 books cost, the first thing we have to do is find out what 1 book costs. So how would we, if all the books, and we're going to assume the books are equally costing the same, if we want to find out what 1 is, then we just have to say that $24, it would be divided by 4 books, because there's 4 books and they're all equal, and they equal to 24. And then we're just going to see that this equals 6. So each book approximately costs $6. So now once we have this part, this is like the key, right? This is just saying that 1 book, right? Remember we did this, 1 book equals $6. So now when we say 3 books equal, well, this was what, times 3, and this will be times 3. So 6 times 3 is $18. And there you have it. That's how you do it. So the main thing you want to figure out here is that you're going to want to find out, if you get a question like this, is you're going to want to find out what 1 book is worth before you try and figure out what 3 books is worth. So I hope you understand that. And the way to do that is, if whatever number of books you've been given, you're going to try and work backwards to find 1. So if you were given 5 books instead, and whatever the cost was, you divide by 5. Or if you were given 7 books, you divide by 7. In this case, you're given 4 books, and you divide it by 4, and you get the cost of 1 book, because you want to have 1 unit so that you can work out the unit rate. Anyways, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'm excited. I got some new stuff, so I'm going to try and make some new videos. These ones I didn't want to incorporate the new things yet because I thought it might be distracting for me. And yeah. Anyways, guys, I will let you go there. Bye-bye for now.